right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is Dave, the Real Music Observer, observing real music in real time for real people just like you right there. And just like yours truly here. Just got finished reading an interesting article from the appropriately titled blabbermouth.net website, focusing on a lot of hard rock and heavy metal bands occasionally dipping their toes into the water of just regular garden variety old school rock. In this case, they were talking about Jonathan Cain. I tell you what, Jonathan Cain is a one-man promotions juggernaut. One thing that he's doing really well, and he's learning from his wife, is he's in the news every day. He's doing media all over the place. And he, in this article, says that the relationship between himself and guitarist Neal Schon has completely reset. All right. Now, we heard Jonathan use the term fake news yesterday, talking about their feud from last summer. And the reason he did that is, number one, is Jonathan never fired back at Neal Schon. Never went after Neal, never called Neal out on anything, just kept his powder dry. And Neal leveled some accusations which, for the most part, have all been proven 100% true. And it's a little bit unnerving to watch this year where, yes, these guys have gotten into a room, they've plugged their instruments in, and they've played, and they've rehearsed, and they warmed up. By the way, Arnell is in town, and from what I understand, he is sounding absolutely phenomenal. So that's good news for Journey fans. I'm sure the tour will go off without a hitch. These guys are all professionals who want to get paid, and there's a motivating factor right there as to why everybody would get along at a certain level. But to go out there and say that the relationship has completely reset, Jonathan, that is fake news. You've not sit in a room with Neal and hashed out Neal's issues with you, nor have you guys sat down with Irving Azoff and talked about the future of Journey and what that might look like. There are a lot of things that are just up in the air. You seem very preoccupied with your book, your church ministry stuff, and now another solo album we hear about in the last 24 hours. I know there was some writing going on leading up to this tour, but who knew you had another solo album in the can? And it sounds as if this solo album might be released before the tour is over or very soon. So all of this just lends itself to Neal Schon's Twitter, if you want to call them rants from last year, just simple statements about, who wrote what song, the enthusiasm as far as participating in writing new music. We've heard that new music, quote unquote, is still on the table, even though Neal Schon has not made any indication whatsoever that these two guys have sat down and wrote music together. They did write some sort of instrumental piece, from what I understand, to play as the band gets onto the stage. But it's, this isn't a new Journey song that's going to be released anytime soon. And it just, it kind of makes me a little bit sad for this situation, because I'm sure Neal Schon would welcome the Jonathan Cain, say, of 1981. Or even the Jonathan Cain of 1998 and 99, when the band was regrouping and Jonathan and Neal were working together and had great chemistry. Notice how the article doesn't say, the chemistry is back, we're churning out new songs. They should be sitting down somewhere and figuring out how to write some better material for the future. But number one, you don't have a Steve Perry around to bounce ideas off of. You might get like a Jim Peterick or someone to help you. But there's no indication that this band is going to do that. So I wanted to comment on the blabbermouth.net article because, quite honestly, from where I'm standing and from what I know, this article is fake news, okay? If we want to start throwing around that term, which, by the way, Jonathan, I probably wouldn't have opened up that can of worms yesterday, just because the term itself is even politically charged these days. And to me, it just doesn't seem as if, your tone, you know what they say about tone deafness? It seems as though the things that Neal talked about last summer, if you guys truly had reset this relationship, I think you would have taken a step away from that kind of stuff and just worked kind of covertly, under the radar, worked on Journey material, had some new Journey songs prior to the tour. That's what I was talking about last fall. Get together with some songwriters. Get together with Steve Augeri, even if he's not going to sing on it. Get together with Perry. Tell him, hey, we need some song ideas. That would have been killer, but instead, you went off and did your own thing. Neal waited patiently, pun intended, and Arnell went out on the solo tour, and Steve Smith did his jazzer thing. And now, we're all back in the same room to play the same songs. And fans, buckle up, because it will be a good ride, but I think this will be the final ride of the Journey Starship. No pun intended there with Mickey Thomas. But in any event, I'm done. You decide. Read the article. Blabbermouth.net. Has the relationship reset? Don't think so. Talk to you soon.